Hey, welcome to the live stream, everybody. Um, just want to send a quick message out there on Twitter before we get started. Let people know that the stream is live. Oh, I already see a mistake. It says we're still in episode 6, so I gotta change that. But I really should change these stream descriptions, but yeah, I'm too lazy. But I think we're about ready to get started with the show. I think my head's a little out of frame there. There we go. It was only slight, but whatever. So let's get this started. Let me just hit record for the podcast. There we go.
You're listening to the Rex Sports Daily, your source for a fresh new take on all
Okay,
the
now
latest headlines from
today
the
it's
world of
extremely
sports.
quiet.
And now, here's your host, George Bennett.
Whatever. This cord, man. This cord is literally gonna be the death of me. All that static. Got it to work yesterday. Doesn't want to see the play ball today. Okay, let's see.
You're listening to the Rex Sports Daily.
Okay, so turn that down a bit. Gosh, real professional here at Direct Sports Daily.
You're listening to the Rex Sports Daily,
Okay,
your
that's
source.
good. Hitting record.
You're listening to the Rex Sports Daily, your source for a fresh new take on all the latest headlines from the world of sports. And now, here's your host, George Bennett.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Today is April 11th, 2017. I want to welcome everybody in the live stream on youtube.com/directsportsdaily. And keep in mind, if you want to get in every day, usually around 9 a.m., we go live with the stream. But if you can't make it, you can always watch it on YouTube later on. But if you want to get your 2 cents in, live stream is the way to go. Today, first thing I want to talk about is the Celtics and the Cavaliers fighting for the top spot in the East. It's certainly a down year for the Cavs. Looks like they could even finish behind Toronto. I don't know what the tiebreaker is at this point, but they could potentially finish in the 3 seed. They're only a game up on the Raptors with a game to go, but nothing's really guaranteed. Even in the bottom of the East, you still got the Pacers, the Bulls, and the Heat all fighting it out for the last 2 spots. I think if the Cavs, in fact, I'm gonna just look at the season series between the Cavs and the Raptors real quick, because I do believe Cleveland has beaten the Raptors at least 3 times, so that may be a non-issue. But in fact, they play tonight. Ooh, a lot on the line there. Or sorry, tomorrow night at 8. So here's why this is a big thing. Because that's the difference between having to play the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, a pretty dangerous young team, and between having to play, say, the Pacers, Bulls in the first round, which the Pacers and the Bulls aren't anywhere near on the talent level, I think, of a Milwaukee. I mean, you just saw Thon Maker. He's coming on the scene. You got Malcolm Brogdon, a couple of great young rookies who are just dominating in their first seasons. And then obviously you got Chris Middleton. Do I even need to mention it? Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak? Do I really need to say that? Yeah, I don't think so. Suffice it to say that is not what you want to see in the first round of the playoffs. So let's just take a look at the season series between the Raptors and the Cavs. See if this is even like an issue that needs to be talked about. So October 28th, the Cavs beat the Raptors in the 6th, 94-91. They beat them in Cleveland on November 15th, 121-117. And they beat them at Toronto, 116-112, back on December 5th. So the Cavs will own the tiebreaker, regardless of if they drop this one. So that's pretty lucky for them. So going through that. They also have the tiebreaker against Boston, who they're currently trailing by 1 game. I think that only matters if the Miami Heat end up overtaking the Bulls for that final spot. I think if you're the Cavs or the Celtics, you'd much rather play Chicago than Miami. Miami is a team who, if not for their early season struggles, would be in that top half of, or at least close to that top half of the East. They've played like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. They came out like gangbusters. I think they had a really great January and February. And they're just looking like they were going to be one of the top lottery teams early on. I mean, I think they were looking down only at the Nets, which everybody should be. And it was insane that what the Miami Heat have done, even like positioning themselves to potentially go 500 on the year, is absolutely astounding. They beat the Cavaliers last night in overtime. Huge loss for the Cavs. They could have locked up a number 1 seed, and it could come back to bite them not getting that number 1 seed. But as it stands right now, you may want the 2 seed because Chicago, I don't think, really presents much of a threat. Outside of Jimmy Butler, nobody on that squad really scares me. You got Rondo and you got Dwayne Wade. So much has been made about that backcourt and just the sheer lack of shooting. They've overachieved in terms of shooting this past season. We saw them blow out Orlando last night, 122-75. Orlando, obviously, is just absolute trash. But I would much rather, if I'm the Heat, play the Bulls or Pacers in the first round than the Miami Heat. Because let's just take a look at the Heat's roster and go through player by player. The Heat have Goran Dragic, who is probably one of the more underrated point guards in the NBA. You don't hear his name come up all that often, but he definitely is, I'd say, a top 10 point guard at minimum. You got a lot of young like studs on that team. You got Justice Winslow. You got guys like Hassan Whiteside. Dion Waiters has found new life in Miami. He had a stretch in the season where he was just going off. And Hassan Whiteside, like I said, he's kind of, I don't know, he's sort of on that like Andre Drummond level where it seems like this guy could be the best center in the NBA, but he probably won't be, but he definitely could be. and to a certain extent. James Johnson, another great guy, great young guy. You got veterans like Udonis Haslem who were like sort of mentoring these guys. Udonis Haslem pretty much is the Miami Heat at this point. Local guy came up through that system. He's 36 at this point. Went to Florida. Has played in the league 13 years. I remember back when he was starting next to Shaq, back with those teams. He was there through the whole Miami Big Three era, and good to see him still kicking around. He's more so of a coach at this point than anything else. I think he's only averaging like 2 points a game, but who knows? That 2 seed, if Miami ends up overtaking Chicago or the Pacers for that final spot in the Eastern Conference, we could see easily that the 2 seed could benefit the Cavs. But obviously they're not going to play for that. It would do a lot for Toronto if they could beat Cleveland heading into the playoffs. Although LeBron James is not playing, he has a calf strain, so gonna fall out on Kyrie, Kevin Love, and just the everlasting depth that team has to go out and get it done. So we'll see. Like I said on the show yesterday, everything in the Western Conference is settled. I think it's just a matter of who gets home court between the Clippers and the Jazz. Other than that, all the first-round matchups are set and locked. You got Golden State playing Portland. That'll probably be over in 4. San Antonio playing Memphis. San Antonio, I feel like San Antonio and Memphis play each other in the first round almost every year. And the Spurs always win because they're just a better version of what Memphis is trying to do. Mike Conley Jr., who knows, maybe he lives up to that high salary of his and sort of takes Tony Parker to school. Because Tony Parker is pretty old at this point, but like, what do you do about Kawhi? Like, Kawhi's going to shut down your best guy and put up 30 while doing it. So, man, and that's no easy feat. I know they've been struggling a little lately, but me and Rob went in depth about the Rockets and the Thunder yesterday. So, and Clippers Jazz, I don't know, have fun competing to be the team that loses to Golden State in the second round. I don't think it really matters. I think the Jazz, they got a lot of great young pieces. The Clippers have a lot of great old pieces. So it's going to be a youth versus experience in that one. Clippers got a lot of experience at losing in the playoffs. I mean, rarely do they make it to the second round. And when they do make it to the second round, they never get past there. So I don't think that series matters very much. It'll be fun to watch. It'll probably be one of the more fun series to watch, one of the more compelling series, because it'll be probably the most competitive of the first round. I'm just looking around. Boston's probably going to knock out whoever they play in 5. I see them dropping probably game 3 to whoever they play, but I don't see their series going more than 5. Cavs are probably going to sweep Toronto, Milwaukee. That could be an interesting one. I think ultimately Toronto probably wins in 5. Maybe they push them to 6. Wizards, Hawks. That might be one of the few, the rare 4 sweep over a 5. Because the Hawks, like, they haven't even been trying this year. Like, as far as the organization's concerned, they've been trying to ship guys out. They shipped out Kyle Korver. There were all sorts of Paul Millsap rumors this season. I think they just couldn't get a deal done for him. Well, this is a team who, like, just found themselves in the playoffs while trying to rebuild. It's kind of ridiculous with them, but we'll see what happens. But the Cubs, they get it done against the Dodgers. Sergio Romo takes the L in this one because of a late home run by Anthony Rizzo. It gives the Cubs the win on what was sure to be a great night for them. It comes in the bottom of the ninth, so nice little walk-off. After the Dodgers, it came, tied it up in the top of the eighth. But not too much to say about this one. Chris Bryant, he finally gets off the schneid a little bit, has a double. He's now at he has 4 RBIs in this one. So, he's at 4 RBIs on the season. Yeah, he got 4 RBIs in the game where his team scored 3 runs. That makes sense. But yeah, he's been struggling a bit. You're seeing the average sort of tick up a little bit at 267, but obviously we've been playing a week. Rizzo still down at 172. But there's not much to make of these numbers a weekend. Javier Baez is batting 167. So, yeah, I find it difficult to talk about baseball after a week because it's what do I say? Let's take a quick look at the standings that also don't mean anything. You got Baltimore's 4-1. The Twins are 5-1. I doubt that'll last. Jesus, the Twins are leading their division. My Tigers are 4-2. They're a game back. Angels are 5-2. Nationals are 4-3. Tied with the Mets at 4-3. Cubs and Reds are both 5-2, leading their division, and the Diamondbacks are 6-2, leading their division. So, yeah, none of this is going to hold through 162 games. Absolutely none of it. The Blue Jays are currently 1-5, so gonna be. I think we're definitely gonna see a bounce back from them. If not, it could just be one of those seasons. It seems like there's always some team like that you expect to compete for something, and they just fall flat on their face all season. I know that's been the Tigers a few times. Most notably, I think it was 2008, where everyone kept saying, "No, this is the best offense we've seen on paper ever. They could score 1,000 runs." And, yeah, that didn't happen. But just looking around the league, obviously, I don't think Minnesota can keep up with this pace. Minnesota's not good, so just looking, I probably couldn't even name more than 5 players on this team. Yeah, I definitely couldn't. Joe Mauer is still at first base, so that's a thing. They got Ervin Santana. Yeah, outside of that, I've literally never heard of anybody else on this team. So maybe they're just a bunch of young guys whose names I'll know in 2 months because they'll keep this pace up. But Minnesota, that's currently the best team in the majors at 5-1. And I doubt I'll be saying that come September, that Minnesota's leading anything. But as we struggle to talk baseball, as there's not much going on yet, let's try to transition in football where there's pretty much nothing going on. But we're still going to talk about it anyway. Got a bit of a soapbox moment I need to get out right now. Because I'm just looking, and I've said it pretty much all off season long. the Houston Texans are a quarterback away from competing with the New England Patriots for the top spot in all of football. And I'm bringing up the Texans roster real quick just to or the depth chart, just so I can get a better idea and sort of confirm what I already think in my head. So the offensive line, it isn't the worst. Quite frankly, you got Dwayne Brown, you got Chris Clark. These are your bookend tackles. They're not. Dwayne Brown, I remember, was a pretty high draft pick. But as far as weapons go, you got Will Fuller, who had some tremendous games as rookie last year. And you got DeAndre Hopkins, who is arguably one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL. Probably, if you ask most in terms of just sheer talent, they'd probably put him in that 5 to 10 range. Some may have him in the top 5, but you got Lamar Miller, Alfred Blue, and Jonathan Grimes as your running backs. Solid, stable running backs. Lamar Miller obviously had a down year last year, but I think that was mostly due to the lack of threat of a passing game. You got C.J. Fedorowicz and Ryan Griffin as your tight ends. Ryan Griffin was able to do a few things, and C.J. Fedorowicz came on last year. For those of you who played fantasy, you know the name C.J. Fedorowicz because you were able to pick him up off waivers in deeper leagues, and he was able to get something done for you. And then you got the quarterback situation with Tom Savage and Brad Weeden. I think we've said enough there. So then you got the best defense in the NFL last year. You got Jonathan Joseph, who's been a stalwart at corner ever since he came over from the Bengals a few years back. You still got inside, you got Brian Cushing. And at the other cornerback position, you got Kareem Jackson. Your safeties leave a little bit to be desired, but hey, when you got a pass rush that involves Jadeveon Clowney and coming back J.J. Watt, you don't need that great of a secondary. I don't see how you're going to do anything on this defense. I think just Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt alone is enough to carry a defense. And when you have even half decent players, which they have, and then you got a guy like Cushing, who's been anchoring that defense for years now, you just can't compete with the Texans' D. And then there is just the quarterback situation, which is holding everything back. Tom Savage, hey, I don't know the man personally. He's probably a good guy, but he just isn't what this team needs to compete at the highest level. And is Tom Savage going to go head-to-head with Tom Brady and come out victorious? No. That's something that is never going to happen. Ever. Unless, Brady has that huge fall-off this year that some people are predicting. I'm not going to call that. But some people are. I'm leaving that one alone. When Brady falls off, he falls off. I'm never going to call it, though. I'm never going to be that guy who wants to see Brady fail and just to make it sound like my prediction came to fruition or whatever. But here's the big issue I have with all of this. There's a quarterback out there, and I think some of you know where I'm going with this, who could easily turn this entire situation around, a guy who's gotten a complete bum rap. And when I tell you the numbers, I think it's going to shock you a little bit. And that's Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick could easily step in there and be, at the bare minimum, a huge upgrade over what you had last year. I think almost anybody is a huge upgrade over the Brock Osweiler experiment. However, Colin Kaepernick, he's a lot better than a lot of people realize in terms of passing the football. I don't know why I was just stumbling there. But I just since he came in the league in 2011, Colin Kaepernick, here are his career numbers. His completion percentage is roughly 60. So he's not blowing anybody away, but that's getting the job done to a certain extent. Touchdowns, 72. Interceptions, 30. So you're talking about a greater than 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And then you consider he's thrown for over 3,000 yards in every season that he's started 16 games, which was 2 back in 2013 and 2014. Everybody's so down on this guy. He's never thrown more than 10 interceptions in a season. He averages about 7.3 yards per attempt. So that's not terrible. And you just look at his quarterback rating, it's 88.9. So this is, I think, an above average quarterback. His record throughout his career is 28-30. He's played on some really good teams and some really bad teams. Obviously, last year, San Francisco, if the Browns weren't a thing, San Francisco would have been the team we looked at and made all the jokes about. But lucky for them, they had the Browns to sort of take the brunt of that punishment. Even though they only finished with one more win than the Browns. And that's just his passing numbers. When you add in the fact that this man is also a threat to run the football and has 2,300 career rushing yards and 13 career rushing touchdowns, averaging about 6.1 yards per carry, that adds a dimension to things where I don't understand why no one wants him. It's the whole kneeling during the national anthem thing. I think that whole thing's overblown. I think at the end of the day, if he wins, nobody cares about that. I think that's been blown up to be way bigger than it needs to be, especially when you got guys out here beating their girlfriends. It's come on. Let's not demonize a guy just for having a different stance in terms of societal issues and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I initially thought his protest was kind of stupid, but then I looked and saw how much coverage it was getting, how much attention he was drawing towards the point he was trying to get across and the cause he was trying to do it for. And at the end of the day, it was a successful thing. It brought up a lot of different conversations, brought a lot of different things into the limelight. And sometimes you gotta do something that drastic in order to get people talking. But hey, that's something completely different in terms of just straight football. Colin Kaepernick signing with the Texans makes way too much sense with Tony Romo taking himself off the market. It's are you really gonna go down the road of signing Jay Cutler? It's let me bring up Jay Cutler. I didn't think about this at first, but I don't have his stats ready to go. But let me just bring up Jay Cutler and his like career numbers, because I'm willing to bet that they're pretty comparable, like in terms of. So let's just look at the straight touchdowns to interceptions real quick. You got 208 to 146. So Colin Kaepernick's clearly like well ahead of him in terms of taking care of the football. Jay Cutler back in 2009 threw 26 interceptions. Like I said, Colin Kaepernick's never thrown more than 10 in a season. Jay Cutler has thrown more than 10 in a season more often than not. In his 11-year career, he's only thrown less than 10 interceptions 3 times. So you're talking about 8 seasons. 2017, 14 picks. 2008, 18 picks. Like I said previously, 2009, 26 picks. 2010, 16 picks. 2012, 14. 2013, 12. 2014, 18. It's like this man just does not take care of the football. And 2 of those seasons where he threw less than 10 interceptions were last season, where he only played 5 games. So, and his rookie year, where he only played 5 games. And in both of those, he threw 5 interceptions. So you're talking about 1 a game. And people are talking about him as if he's just the savior. And he's never thrown more than 30 TDs in a season. So it's not like he just lights it up. And he doesn't have the same mobility as a Kaepernick. In 2010, he was sacked 52 times. And this is a guy who's getting looks more so than Colin Kaepernick. Now, to be fair, in 2014, Colin Kaepernick was also sacked 52 times. And that's ultimately what cost him his job, I think, that in the 2015 season. But when you look at the numbers, 6 TDs, 5 interceptions, and 8 games started, and it's not terrible. But then, just looking at last year, and consider this was in a limited season. Colin Kaepernick started 11 games. He threw for 2,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. In an offense in Chip Kelly's that wasn't producing results. Like, he didn't have the greatest receiving core. He never really has. He's never really had an Alshon Jeffrey level type receiver, like to keep the Jay Cutler comparison going. He's never had a Brandon Marshall. He's never had anyone on that level. He's barely even had someone on the level of an Eddie Royal. So, I don't know why. And what makes me bring this up is the headline came out earlier today. Like, a bunch of former 49ers players have come out and saying they're absolutely shocked that Colin Kaepernick hasn't been signed at this point. And I'm right there with him. He seems like a good locker room guy, too. I know he has his troubles with the media and he gets bashed for that, but as far as the locker room is going, I know his teammate Eric Reed started joining him in his protests and things like that. So he seems to have people on his side, like in terms of just his teammates liking him. Navarro Bowman comes out in support of him. Carlos Hyde. He seems like a well-liked individual. And for teams to just use this whole protest thing to sort of like as a excuse for not signing what is clearly a quality quarterback, I think he's a guy who could potentially be top 20 next year, if not better. I see his ceiling as sort of being like that 12 to 20 range. Like, I think that's the best case scenario, but if you're Houston, that's good enough, I think, to make it to at least an AFC Championship game. If he's giving you that kind of production, given the tools he has around him, he's never had a DeAndre Hopkins level wide receiver with him, or even like a potential of like a Will Fuller. San Francisco did not do a lot to position talent around him, and the one time he had the talent, Super Bowl appearance. So Jim Harbaugh has said some great things about him. He was his former coach. He's the guy that gave Kaepernick a chance over Alex Smith back when they were on their Super Bowl run. So I think people are sleeping on Colin Kaepernick, and I think it's going to come back to bite a team like Houston if they don't make the move to sign him. So a couple more like smaller stories coming out. Smaller to me at least. Apparently for the 2026 World Cup, the United States, Mexico, and Canada are filing a joint bid for it. So it will basically just be hosted by North America itself. And 80 games spread across 3 countries. They say they're going to have about 60 in the U.S. and 10 in Canada and Mexico. It sounds like a good plan. It's always tough to tell because it feels like FIFA is just so corrupt that it doesn't matter how great of a logic-based argument you make towards, we should have the World Cup here, we should do this or that. It all comes down to money at the end of the day, unfortunately. But, hey, we'll see. Apparently there's been some back and forth between LaShawn McCoy and Kiko Alonso over Instagram. I don't really know what this is about, so let me read this article real quick. So LaShawn McCoy didn't show up for off-season workouts last week in Buffalo. Apparently he took exception to an Instagram post from Kiko Alonso. Okay, apparently here's some comments from LaShawn McCoy. Boy, your dad wish you was as good as me and your new contract garbage, LOL, my 2011 money. And take me off your page, you bum. I don't know. Before I clicked on the article, they had built this trash talk up to be way more. I'm kind of disappointed by that. I guess, like, saying that's my 2011 money is like, I don't know. Like, saying your millions are slightly more than his millions, it's like, who cares at the end of the day? Kiko Alonso has a 3-year, $28.8 million contract extension, so there's not much to talk about. LaShawn McCoy got a 5-year, $45 million contract, so I don't even know what this is all about. Apparently, these two have some history. I don't know. It seems like a very weak beef. Like, I always like beef like this, but God, you got to bring in more than that. Both of these guys. And I haven't seen the picture Kiko Alonso posted. To be fair, the article I'm looking at doesn't have it, but yeah, that was weak. NFL preseason schedule got announced. No one really cared about that. The Browns and Lions will probably play because for some reason the Browns and Lions always played in preseason. Marshawn Lynch apparently privately has expressed interest in joining the Patriots. Now, this is just a rumor, but Marshawn Lynch on the Patriots, I I don't like that. I don't think that's a good look for Marshawn. Going to the team that beat you in the Super Bowl, that's definitely some Kevin Durant type stuff right there. And I don't think people will look fondly upon that. Like, if he's going back to the Oakland and playing for his hometown team, yeah, that's cool. But joining the Patriots while they're on this high after they just won the Super Bowl, and it appears you're just trying to bandwagon for another championship. I don't like it. It's not a good look. And the LA Kings, they fire their GM and their head coach and the president. Jeez, they're just cleaning house in LA. This is weird, considering I'm pretty sure all these guys were there for the championship back in 2011. I'm sorry, back in 2012 and 2014. And they made it to the conference championship back in 2013. But they've only missed the playoffs twice in the past 8 years. These numbers just don't add up. I don't know. People get fired way too quickly in the NHL. In terms of head coaches and GMs and stuff like that. I'm reading the article. They've missed the playoffs the past 3 years. It's that just seems like way too quick a trigger. You don't want a Jeff Fisher situation to emerge where you look up and you haven't made the playoffs in 7 years and he's still your head coach. But at the end of the day, can you really expect to be in the playoffs every single season? And if you don't make it every single season, you just fire the head coaches. The NHL just has way too quick of a trigger sometimes. And I don't know. I don't know what some of these owners expect. But that's about all I got for today. It's been another fun show. I enjoy doing these. Wish Rob could have joined us today. Unfortunately, he was having some troubles with his internet. Hopefully, we can get him back on later in the week. But I want to thank everyone who tuned in to the live stream, everyone who's listening on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, or other podcasting services around the globe and whatnot, or anybody watching this on YouTube later. So, thanks to everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with more Direct Sports Daily.
This has been another episode of Direct Sports Daily. Thanks for listening, and to keep up with the show, follow us on Twitter at the DSD Podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher Radio, or visit our website, www.directsportsdaily.com.